Vanessa, welcome. I am so
Hi.
happy to have you here. We've had some fun trying to arrange the time to meet, but we have snuck in just in time to fit this interview into the summit, and I'm really happy about that. It's such a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Now I will invite you to introduce yourself to the watchers.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie. First of all, I want to thank you because for your invitation. For me, it's a privilege. I will try to speak in English and to make myself understand you to understand me. I will try that. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Okay, I'm Vanessa Uribe. I live in Medellin, Colombia, South America. I was born here and raised here. I'm a psychologist and I'm an existential therapist. When I was like 23 years old, I went to Mexico to study with Jackie Andres Martinez, the Mexican school, after I graduated from psychology. And then I came back 5 years later to Colombia, and I found and create the Diálogo Existencial. That is the word is like a branch of the existential school. Is that correct? Like a branch, yeah, from existential school, and we began the Mexican program here in Medellin. So it's a training in existential therapy, the same training that Mexico built 20 years ago. So now we are teaching existential therapy here in Medellin. And I also have my own practice as a therapist, and that's it. Yeah.
Wow. So how did you originally get interested in existential ideas? What was it about existential ideas that you found interesting and wanted to pursue?
Well, when I was 16 years old, I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and this motivated me to study psychology in first place, and then to become an existential therapist. I'm not a logotherapist now, but it began there. Like, oh, I want to do what these guys do. Like, I want to do that. I love how he talked to patients and the way he saw existence. So I began there, and I started the psychology career. And I met a lot of philosophers, more than what I read in Viktor Frankl's book. So I met Heidegger, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, or Camus. I don't know how that you say that in English. And then, as I told you, I went to study with Jackie, and Jackie have a way of teaching, very easy, passionate, very close, like a friendly teaching. So I fell in love with a lot of these authors, and then with existential therapists too, the famous existential therapists. That's how I began to be interested in this perspective.
With speaking about existential ideas, but for you, how do you define existential?
Okay. I think existentialism is something very difficult to define. Even existentialism resists definitions, resists something short to say, because it's a very pluralistic perspective, and it hasn't have a unified consensus. So it's very difficult to define. I think that is very important to distinguish between existential perspective and existentialism, because existentialism is tends to be attributed to the French movement led by Sartre or Sartre. So I think it's very different. If we talk about existential perspective, that is very big. That existentialism is like a part of that big movement. I think existential perspective is a literary and a philosophical movement that seeks to understand human reality and what it means and implies to exist in all its pleasant and unpleasant aspects. There are many important aspects from which existential perspective proceeds. I think about three of them, three important to me, but there is a lot. So I'm going to talk about three of them. One aspect that is important to me is that human reality or human beings are actions, are movements. Like we are verbs, not things or objects that stay still. We are, every time we are movement, change. That is very important to existentialism or the existential perspective. The second one is that we are all immersed in a big network of relations, from relations to objects, nature, spaces, to others, and to our relation to ourselves, right? The relation we are own selves. So we are made of relations. And I think that is something different from other perspectives that think that human beings are like away from the world or different from world and others. And three, which is I fell in love with the existential perspective. More these three aspects is like the third aspect is like the thing I got inspired by. Like, wow, I believe in this, and that it says that human beings are always openness, always for being, always for occurring, always for what is coming. So we are possibilities. And when I read that we are possibilities and we are not things that are all done while we live, I felt some release and I felt, oh, I want to treat people like this, like they are possibilities, they are openness, not something that you can define or give a diagnosis, like a mental illness or something like that, that we are openness, we are possibilities. So I think existential perspective, if we have these three aspects, generally it rebels against absolutism or determinism with absolute ideas about human being or human existence. I love that. I love to rebel to things that appear like that is for all. And I think I rebel to that too, like existentialism does. And it considers human beings, if we are movement, human beings are contradictions and tensions between sides. All the time we are immersed in a lot of contradictions, a lot of voices, a lot of sides, a lot of version of us, because we are all the time in movement. That I think that is important too. And for the last thing I will want to say is that existentialists are interested in the way each person chooses and takes responsibility for his or her own life based on the relations he or she establishes. I think that is important, that we are interested in how you choose, I live my life, you live your life. Each person lives his or her life. And I will say that Sorry if I'm I'm trying, but it's okay for me.
It's so perfect and it's so beautiful. It's fascinating how many times I can ask people the same question and have a completely different answer. But what I
Yeah.
love about what you've shared is, yes, there are so many different themes, and there are some that are your favorite or are most meaningful to you. And I think that's something really beautiful, especially what you say about people being possibilities. Just that in itself is just such a beautiful idea. And like you said, you treat people like their possibilities. It's not just about having that idea, but how that influences your life, and to treat everybody, friends, strangers, clients, as if they are possibilities, that just totally changes the way that they must experience you and how you experience the world.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think it's beautiful too. And I wish more therapists treat people like that, you know, like possibilities. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you said that you came from your training in Mexico back to Colombia and you've started your own branch, your own organization. I would love to hear about your offerings in the existential field.
Okay. I think the most important offering uh, is that I'm the director and founder of this branch of the Círculo Existencial in Mexico. Our school here in Medellin is called Diálogo Existencial. It's existential dialogue in English. And I think that is my best offering because I've been training here therapists for the last 4 years. We have two generations, yeah, two generations of therapists that graduated recently, and we have now a lot of groups starting the 3-year training. They are completing it today. So we are like we've been like 60 people now between the people who have graduated and the current students. So I believe that my best offering or contribution is to spread existential therapy here in Colombia, in Medellin. I haven't written any book now, or I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I teach existential perspective. I teach people who is interested in become existential therapist and existential therapist, and I think that is very valuable because in Medellin, we before existential dialogue or dialogue existencial, we didn't have in this is a small city, so we didn't have any institution to study phenomenological perspective, existential perspective in therapy. So since we built existential dialogue or dialogue existencial, a lot of psychologists or therapists are very thankful because they expand their horizons to people, places, authors, knowledge that wasn't before. And it was thanks to Jackie too, and the program we brought here.
And that is such an amazing contribution. Like you say, some people find that they want to write, some people, find different ways to contribute, and for you, sharing the knowledge, sharing the new perspectives on life is kind of the passion that you've found for yourself. And like you say, you can see the real difference that it makes in your town and in your
Yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah, of course. I think it's very important, and to build a community is what we should do. We all should do. Like I encourage therapists to do that, to build communities about existential therapy. Even if you can find a community, you should build one, because we need it.
Vanessa, why do you think that community is so important?
Because I think it's not enough to self-taught the existential perspective. I think it's not enough to learn in solitary. I think when you learn this perspective with others, with dialogue, with conversations, with like spaces when you can share perspectives and different understandings of philosophers or therapists. Well, I think it's more, it has more passion. It is more like useful, like powerful, like, yeah, it's not the same when you are reading Nietzsche in your house, or Nietzsche in your house, than when you talk about Nietzsche with others, and when you get together to learn together. And I think that is different. We should do that more, like not only in your library at your house. I think we should share this knowledge with other people.
I think that's so true. I wonder if you've noticed the same, that sometimes when you think about these big questions and you are by yourself and they come up for you at a difficult time, these questions can be quite scary, whereas exploring them with a community, with a focus, like knowing what you're looking at, is a whole different experience.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
So you said that it was Viktor Frankl who was the first author that you found. He's also someone that influenced me, I think, during my studying. I absolutely, his shone brightly for me, and I think pretty much all of my essays when I was studying had included Viktor Frankl. It became a bit of a joke with my colleagues. But what other ways can people explore philosophy and existentialism? Is it just in books that you find powerful? And
It depends, because if you are alone trying to learn this perspective, the first way is by books, through books, or videos on YouTube, or documents on internet, or journals. Because that's why I say that in community is better, or joining an academic program like the program that Jackie and his team built in Mexico. It's very useful because they have 1 year of philosophy, and we learn about Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Sartre, Albert Camus, Levinas, Derrida, Wittgenstein, Simone de Beauvoir, Martin Buber. But they have already the list of these philosophers that you should learn about. So when you join a community, you have like guidance, like, okay, I have to read about these philosophers, I have to learn these ideas from them because these are important to therapy or coaching. And then you should read, if you're interested in therapy, in existential therapy, you should read the big ones first, like Amy Van Dursen, Ernesto Spinelli, Irving Yalom, Jackie Andres Martinez, who have written a lot of books right now, like 5 or 6 books, I don't know. You should begin with like with the famous existential therapists. Also Vince Banger, Nedar Vos, Ronald Lang, Thomas Sass is an important author too to read. So, you know, like you can start by yourself through books, but a community or a program that is that has been built, that is being building with care, with a lot of years, I think is the perfect guidance, because you don't know where to start. With philosopher you have to start, with therapists you have to start, and that's why I think a community is also very important to have guidance in this perspective that is very, very big, because you can start to in the literary movement with Kafka, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, but it's very big. So you need to you need some guidance or people who work with you, trying to find out where to begin, like, you know. Are you understanding me, Natalie?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know I make very mistakes when I speak, but it's okay. It's okay. Not a problem for me. But I know when I speak that, oh, that is not, you don't say that, but it's okay. So the important thing is you understand me.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
And I would love if you want to share some of Viktor Frankl's kind of big messages, the ones that made you really excited and passionate about.
Okay. I'm not passionate about Viktor Frankl's legacy right now, but at that time, I love the idea of meaning as a powerful thing to get through crisis or tragedies. Like when I read his book and I read about what he had been through the Holocaust, and that he found meaning in that, in tragedy. For me, that was very powerful. That in that time, like, whoa, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, he lived his own theory, you know. It's not something like he invented a theory and said in his comfortable chair at his house, like, oh, life has some meaning, you have to find meaning in crisis. No, he was living it. So that for me was, wow, I need to find meaning in my own suffering, because if this guy found meaning in what he lived, I need to do that. It's the same in my own life. So that was very powerful when I was 16. I said, okay, I have to learn from my difficulties, from my own tragedies. I have to find the whys and the what for this suffering. I need to do that. That was very powerful at the time. Yeah, the meaning in crisis, the meaning in suffering.
It's so true. He is such a role model, and there's such a difference between someone sitting and writing something because it's a nice idea, and someone sitting and writing really believing in what they say because they've experienced it.
Yeah, totally. He survived because this idea is amazing.
Yeah. And you said that you were passionate about his work, but now not so much. So I'm interested, who are you most passionate about at the moment?
Okay. Ooh. I don't have only one, but I can tell you about the same subject, meaning, about meaning or sense of life. And I love the Spinelli's ideas, Ernesto Spinelli's ideas about meaning or the sense of life. I think Spinelli showed me that the lack of meaning or the lack of sense can be also powerful and useful and liberador in Spanish, like freed, like when you feel freedom. How do you say that? When you feel freedom.
Liberating. Same
Yeah,
word.
liberating. It's liberating. The lack of sense can be liberating. For example, when you are liberating from a rigid belief or a religious belief, very, very rigid, you can feel liberated sometimes when you don't have meaning there, you don't have sense there, and you don't know who you will be. Who are you going to be right now if you are liberated from that beliefs? But it can feel like that, like, oh, like some relief too. So he showed me that I can't categorize the lack of meaning or a lot of meaning as good or bad itself. Like, it depends. Sometimes a lot of meaning is difficult too, because it can be a dogmatism or a fundamentalism, and it's difficult that. And sometimes the lack of meaning can be liberating. So both aspects, meaning or the lack of meaning, or sense or nonsense, are both good or bad depending on every individual, every moment of life. It depends. So I think I now love that idea more, and I think we should be careful about giving suffering meaning all the time, because sometimes it hasn't meaning. It's not about the meaning, or a lot of. What do you say to a mother who lost his or her son, for example? What is the meaning of that? Maybe it hasn't meaning, like. So I think as therapists, we should be careful about leading patients to find or search for meaning in suffering, because maybe suffering has no meaning sometimes. So Spinelli prevented me to categorize meaning or non-meaning, or sense or nonsense, in good, bad, and expecting people to find meaning like an order. And I think it's not like that. Mhm.
It's so true, and makes me think that, again, probably an existential theme that helps in these situations is kind of acceptance of the absurd, of acceptance of the injustice in the world, that the fact that there is suffering, the fact that that is inevitable, and being there for a person or a client while they just sit with the feeling, like you say, rather than try to push through their natural pain immediately and force themselves to find meaning. Sometimes it is about just sitting there and accepting and confronting the fact that life sometimes is full of injustice and nonsense and meaninglessness, like you say.
Yeah, and we have the right to accept the injustice, or to fight against justice, against injustice too. Like, we can accept it or not. Like, you can spend years fighting against the inevitable things of life. That's an option. Or not, like, or accept them. I think human are possibilities. You need to know or to understand the way you relate to injustice. Maybe fighting, maybe accepting, maybe like with some indifference. I don't know. Yeah.
So do you feel that there have been times in your life where existential ideas have been helpful?
Yeah, I have it here. Mm, yeah, existential perspective was very important to me when I was living in Mexico as as a migrant for 5 years, studying with Jackie, and in his school. I think these years were unforgettable for me because this perspective, I was reading this perspective while I was lonely there in Mexico with no friends, no family, learning about a new culture. So reading Sartre, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Spinelli, Emi Van Dursen, Jackie, etc., was very helpful in my loneliness, in my fears, in my big questions about life when I was an immigrant. They were like companions, like partners in my loneliness. Um, and as a result of being in Mexico, reading these authors, I I felt a lot of passion and attachment to my existence, to my life. Paradoxically, because you read sometimes ideas that are like strong, like very with a lot of movement. When you read that, it's like, oh, and paradoxically you feel passion. I felt passion about my existence reading them. mm, I remember that I'll give you some context. I was raised in a Catholic environment. My family was Catholic, and I went to a Catholic school all my life. So when I began the psychology career, I started to question my belief in God. But it wasn't until I was in Mexico, living in Mexico, reading these authors, that I was freed from that belief. Like, and it it wasn't for me a terrible thing. Paradoxically, I regained my life, losing some of it. Losing some of my beliefs. I regained my life. I felt like everything in my life depends on me, and the relationships I have, or the relations I establish, but it depends on me. I don't have any more guidance or someone who will help me. And for me, it was liberating. I can't explain why, but it was very liberating. I was like, okay, my life is mine. There's no help here. I have to do something. I have to move. I have to make decisions. I have to talk to people. I have to have the initiative to start something. I have to ask myself how I want to live, because I don't have any guidance or path that was before me. So that was very important to me in those years. I felt freed. And I remember a lot this idea of Sartre's idea that says that something like that. I don't know how to say that in English, but something like that. Like, if God exists, it doesn't matter. The life will remain the same. Like, human existence will be the same if God exists or not, because man is in front of the world without excuses for his own freedom. So that was very powerful for me. Like, I took my life in my hands in that time, and I said, okay, this is mine. What I'm going to do, like that. Yeah. Oh, my English. I'm laughing about my English.
It's absolutely brilliant. Honestly, I'm so moved by your story, and I really appreciate you sharing.
Okay.
I love what you said there, that you somehow gained something. There was this paradoxical gain from losing, and we often forget that that is a possibility. We
Yeah.
focus on the loss, we focus on the suffering. We don't notice that actually by losing something, maybe especially losing something that wasn't serving us anymore, can be incredibly liberating and can allow us to gain so much. Even just gaining that freedom, that relief of carrying something that wasn't really right for us.
Yeah, that's an example of the loss, the nonsense, you know, that I the I lost some sense of my life, some meaning, but I was alive, you know. So the losing meaning is not always bad. That's an example. Yeah.
How do you feel that existential ideas can be beneficial to human beings in general? Then how do you feel that they can help with people's well-being, for example?
Okay, I believe that these authors contribute not only to well-being, but even to discomfort, because the perspective is that there is no well-being without discomfort, and that it is important to recognize both aspects of existence. So I believe existential perspective helps to embrace the difficult moments and enjoy the pleasant moments with more lucidity, with more passion. Um, I think this thing I'm telling you is very important for me and for my understanding of existential therapy or existential perspective, because existentialism or existential perspective stops separating good from the bad and teaches people or the readers, you know, to be more friendly to this contrast. So it helps with well-being as with discomfort of people, because teaches that well-being is not away from discomfort or bad things. So you need to like to navigate in those sides, in those contrasts, and to look at one, looking the other, you know, like you have to look well-being looking discomfort, and you have to look discomfort looking also well-being, in that tension. So I think that is important. um, and another thing I love about Albert Camus, how do you say that in English? Camus.
Camus often, but
Camus.
again, he's
Okay.
French anyway, so probably we say
Yeah.
it.
But for example, in Spanish, you can say Camus. We know that it's French, but sometimes people refer it in Spanish, like Camus, not in Camus or Camus in French. So I don't know if in English they adopt a way to say that. That was I was asking that. But yeah, Camus is like something like that in French. Okay, that Sisyphus idea, I think is very powerful for people. I recommend to read something about Sisyphus myth. Mm, this idea of Sisyphus, that we are always have the opportunity to reveal ourselves with dignity from a merciless destiny. Oh, I think that's powerful, you know. We are all Sisyphus, you know, carrying that big rock to the top of the mountain, and you know it's going to fall again, and you know everything in life is going to fall again and again. You have to make your own bed on the morning to and do it in at night, you know, all the time. Is everything is going to fall, or everything you build is going to change. But Sisyphus taught me, as I think Camus tried to transmit, to tell, to say, that we can reveal to that that destiny, and take that rock with dignity and try to carry it on again. I think it's powerful, because sometimes a lot of people in therapy came to therapy like that, like, why I'm going to try to love again, why I'm going to try to work or search for a job again, because I can suffer, or it can be bad, or it is going to finish. And Sisyphus teaches a lot, like, yeah, even if it's going to finish, you can leave it with dignity and passion. So I think it's very important to people to know about this.
That's so beautifully put. And you know, for people, you've suggested some amazing reading suggestions, and I love that you suggested to try and engage with these ideas in a community. But for people that are interested in getting involved with existential ideas, was there anything else that you might recommend about engaging?
I'm going to insist they should take the initiative to start building one community, like I did. I think we need that. I think people around the world need to start building existential communities, existential groups, existential schools, whatever you want, like existential lecture groups or existential, meetings to learn together. We need to learn together, to have conversations about this, because Nietzsche, we don't have one Nietzsche, we don't have one Kierkegaard, we have a lot of interpretations of these authors. So we need to share that, to learn about these authors, to, like, how do you understand Nietzsche, or how do you understand Camus, or how do you understand, because it's all we have, the interpretations of these authors. So I encourage people to start a new community. It's okay to do it in solitary. It's okay. It's not bad. But I think the power of the community is wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
Just like we were saying, there's that extra powerfulness about Viktor Frankl's words, saying that it is possible to find meaning in suffering because I have done it myself. It is so genuinely inspiring to hear somebody say, start a community, start having existential discussions, whatever that looks like, even just meeting up and talking about this from someone that has done it themselves. So Vanessa, I am so grateful for you sharing that message and everything that you have today. I would love to speak to you for forever and ever, and it makes me wish that I could speak Spanish a lot better than I can, so that I could engage.
I should do that too. I have to
Yeah.
practice my English.
It's just been amazing, Vanessa. But before we close our interview today, was there anything else that you wanted to add? Did we miss anything, or did you want to leave any kind of comments?
Okay, I want to say that the most influential person in my life to build what I build right now is Jackie Andres Martinez from Mexico. I think he's an amazing teacher. He believes in me, like he encouraged me to start Diálogo Existencial here. And I think people in the world, around the world, should know more about him, about his books. I know that his two or one of his books is translated in English, one of them in Russian, even in Russian. But I think he should be more known in the world, because he's a very important existential author now, and a very important existential therapist. So I'm going to write here in the chat his school, Círculo, his Instagram page, Círculo Existencial, and Diálogo Existencial, the one in Medellin, is like this. In Instagram, that is the Instagram name of both schools. The Mexican one, that is our big dad, and we that are his son in Medellin.
And we will definitely link both of your websites and your pages and your Instagrams wherever this video is uploaded on to our website. And also for people that are watching this, because I absolutely agree with you, Vanessa, Yaki is totally amazing, and I met him and spoke with him for the first Global Existential Summit as well, so we've got that video available for anyone that finishes this and go, ooh, I would love to know more about Yaki. So
yeah,
I really
amazing. He's amazing. Yeah. Yeah,
it really does just exaggerate for me, and hopefully for the listeners, how important it is to look further afield, that not just where you're located, but to expand your horizons, because you know, as living proof in your own and in Yaki's videos, there is so much amazing, you know, diverse insights and ideas and inspiration coming from so many places around the world. So thank you so much, Vanessa.
no, thank you, Natalie. Thank you for your invitation, your patience, for understand my English. Thank you very much. It was wonderful to talk to you too.
You too. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.